Have you ever pondered the reasons behind the fall of the mighty British Empire, once dubbed as the empire on which the sun never sets? A question that echoes through the annals of history, echoing in the minds of historians and enthusiasts alike. It's a tale of power, ambition, and ultimately, an inevitable downfall. The British Empire, at the height of its glory, was a colossal entity that spanned across continents, influencing the course of history in ways one could scarcely imagine. From the icy landscapes of Canada to the sun-drenched plains of India, from the bustling ports of Hong Kong to the arid deserts of Egypt, the British flag fluttered proudly, a symbol of dominance and control. It was an empire so vast, it was said that the sun never set on it. A beacon of global authority, the British Empire was not just about territorial conquests. It was a tapestry of cultures and civilizations, a melting pot of traditions and customs. It was an era of exploration and discovery, of technological advancements and cultural exchanges. It was an epoch that marked the rise of global commerce and the birth of new ideologies. And yet, despite its grandeur, the British Empire did not remain unscathed. Behind the facade of power and prosperity, the seeds of decline had been sown. The empire that seemed invincible started showing signs of vulnerability. Questions were raised and doubts were cast. The empire, it seemed, was not as eternal as it was believed to be. The fall of the British Empire is a saga that is as intriguing as its rise. It is a story that is steeped in paradoxes and enigmas, a narrative that is as complex as it is captivating. The reasons behind its downfall are manifold and multifaceted, each factor contributing to a larger, more intricate picture. But why did the British Empire fall? What led to the decline of an empire that was once considered the epitome of power and prestige? What were the forces that chipped away at the foundations of this mighty entity? Now let's unravel the mystery behind the fall of this colossal empire, step by step. The first blow to the empire came with the American Revolution in the late 18th century. This was a time when the 13 American colonies, tired of British rule and taxation without representation, said enough was enough and declared their independence. The American Revolution was not just a local uprising. It was a global event that sent shockwaves across continents. The Revolution, which lasted from 1775 to 1783, was a bold statement against imperial powers, a torch of liberty that lit the flame of revolutions around the world. But what did it mean for the British Empire? To understand that, we first need to grasp the economic implications. The American colonies were a lucrative part of the British Empire. They were a source of tobacco, cotton, and indigo, commodities that were in high demand back in Europe. Losing these colonies meant losing a valuable source of revenue. Moreover, wars are expensive. The American Revolution was no exception. The British government had to borrow heavily to finance the war, plunging the nation into debt. The financial strain was immense. It was a burden that the empire, even with all its might and resources, struggled to bear. The American Revolution also had a psychological impact on the empire. Imagine a group of colonies across the Atlantic defying the mighty British Empire and winning. It was a David and Goliath story on the world stage, a tale of the underdog triumphing against the odds. This victory emboldened other colonies and sparked revolutionary thoughts around the globe. The invincibility of the British Empire was questioned, and the seeds of rebellion were sown. The loss of the American colonies was indeed a major blow to the British Empire. It was a blow not just in terms of territorial loss, but also in financial, psychological, and prestige terms. The loss of the American colonies marked the first significant crack in the empire's foundation. It was a crack that would widen with time, leading to the eventual fall of one of the most powerful empires in history. Following the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution further strained the empire's resources. In the late 18th century, Britain was the world's leading commercial nation, controlling a vast empire with an advanced industrial base. But as sparks of innovation ignited across Europe and North America, the British Empire found itself in the throes of unprecedented change. The Industrial Revolution brought about significant economic strain on the empire. As the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, Britain had initially held a monopoly on industrial goods and technology. But by the mid-19th century, other nations had begun to catch up. Countries like Germany and the United States hustled and bustled their way into industrialization, developing their own manufacturing sectors. This rising competition meant that Britain was no longer the sole industrial powerhouse, thus affecting its economic dominance. But it wasn't just about the rise of other industrial powers. The Industrial Revolution also had a profound effect on the empire's internal structure. Rapid industrialization led to urbanization, with people flocking to the cities in search of work. This rapid shift resulted in social unrest, with conditions in industrial cities often being poor and living standards low. The empire was forced to deal with these internal issues while also maintaining its vast overseas territories, a balancing act that proved to be a considerable challenge. Additionally, the Industrial Revolution brought about a new wave of technological advancements. These changes, while beneficial in many ways, also meant that the empire had to constantly adapt and invest in new technologies to stay competitive. This constant need for adaptation and investment further strained the empire's resources. In the grand scheme of things, the Industrial Revolution was a double-edged sword for the British Empire. On one hand, it provided opportunities for growth and advancement. On the other, it presented new challenges that the empire struggled to meet. The Industrial Revolution marked a change in the global economic landscape, challenging the empire's dominance. However, the two world wars were the final straws that broke the empire's back. The British Empire, once the most powerful empire on the globe, found itself reeling under the immense burden of the two world wars. The wars were like gargantuan storms, shaking the very foundation of the empire, testing its strength and resilience to the extreme. The First World War, also known as the Great War, was a colossal human tragedy. Britain, like many other nations, was caught in its deadly grip. The loss of manpower was staggering. Millions of British soldiers were either killed or wounded. The empire was bled white, its vitality drained by the massive loss of life. And then came the Second World War, a conflict even more devastating than the first. The financial strain of fighting two global wars was crippling. The empire was forced to borrow heavily, plunging it into a sea of debt. The cost of maintaining a global empire, along with the expenses of war, was simply too much. The empire's economy was stretched to its breaking point. But perhaps the most significant impact of the world wars was the rise of nationalism in the colonies. The wars had shown the colonies that the empire was not invincible. The myth of British superiority was shattered. Nationalistic sentiments began to stir in the hearts of the colonized peoples. The desire for self-determination, for freedom from foreign rule, was ignited. The wars had given the colonies a glimpse of their potential, of what they could achieve if they were free. The world wars were like two powerful punches that left the British Empire staggering, gasping for breath. The empire was left weak, its strength sapped, its confidence shaken. The seeds of disintegration had been sown. The aftermath of the world wars left the empire weak, paving the way for its eventual disintegration. The post-war period saw a surge in independence movements across the empire's colonies. As the smoke of the Second World War began to clear, the sun was already setting on the British Empire. The empire, once the most formidable global power, was left economically weakened and politically fragile after the devastating war. Let's take a closer look at the rise of these independence movements, starting right at the heart of the empire, India. Known as the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, India had been under British rule for nearly 2 centuries. But the winds of change were blowing. The Indian National Congress, led by charismatic leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, had been steadily gaining momentum. Their non-violent resistance and civil disobedience campaigns were a thorn in the side of the empire, igniting the spark for freedom among millions. And it wasn't just India. Across the globe, from Africa to the Caribbean, the voices for self-rule were getting louder. Empowered by the ideals of democracy and self-determination, these movements were no longer willing to be mere pawns in the hands of an imperial power. The British Empire, with its depleted resources, found itself unable to quell these rising tides of nationalistic fervor. In the face of these relentless pressures, the British authorities were forced to reassess their stance. The process of decolonization began, albeit reluctantly, with India gaining independence in August 1947. This was soon followed by a domino effect, with other colonies also breaking free from the shackles of British rule. The successful independence movements marked the end of an era for the British Empire. The sun had finally set on an empire where it was once said to never set. This dramatic shift marked the end of imperial might and the beginning of a new world order. The empire, once the most powerful force on the globe, had crumbled under its own weight, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape our world today. So, what led to the fall of the British Empire? Let's take a stroll through the pages of history to understand better. The American Revolution was a significant turning point. As the 13 American colonies severed their ties with Britain, it was the first major blow to the empire. The loss of these prosperous colonies was a harsh economic hit, and it also set a precedent for other colonies to demand independence. Next, we have the Industrial Revolution. While it initially bolstered the empire's strength, it ultimately played a role in its downfall. The revolution led to a shift in global economic power. Other nations, notably Germany and the United States, began to industrialize, thus challenging Britain's economic dominance. The world wars, both the first and the second, were debilitating for the empire. The wars drained the empire's resources, with a significant loss of human life, economic strain, and a severe blow to the nation's morale. Post-war, Britain was no longer the formidable power it once was. Lastly, the increasing independence movements across the empire's colonies were the final nail in the coffin. Inspired by the American Revolution and empowered by Britain's weakened state post-World Wars, colonies from Africa to Asia began to demand their freedom. The fall of the British Empire was not a single event, but rather a complex interplay of these factors. Each played a part, chipping away at the empire's foundation until it could no longer stand. The empire's decline was a gradual process that took place over several decades. It was a period of immense change, marked by shifting power dynamics, economic turbulence, and a growing call for independence around the globe. These factors combined led to the collapse of the British Empire, forever changing the course of history. The British Empire's fall has left a lasting impact on the world. As we delve into the legacy of the empire, we find its fingerprints all over the globe. In spite of its dissolution, the influence of the British Empire is not confined to the history books. Rather, it has permeated various aspects of our lives, including language, culture, and global politics. Let's begin with language. English, the lingua franca of the empire, has become the de facto global language. It's the language of international diplomacy, business, and the internet. From New York to New Delhi, from Sydney to Singapore, English is the bridge that connects cultures and facilitates global communication, a testament to the reach of the empire. Moving on to culture, the British Empire has left its mark in countless ways. In the world of sports, games like cricket, rugby, and football, all British in origin, have found ardent followers in the farthest corners of the globe, transcending cultural and geographical boundaries. Literature and media also bear the empire's imprint, with British authors, filmmakers, and artists influencing generations of creatives worldwide. Now let's talk about global politics. The British Empire, at its zenith, was the most extensive empire in history, and its colonial policies have shaped the political landscapes of many modern nations. From the parliamentary systems in Australia and Canada to the legal frameworks in India and Hong Kong, the British influence is palpable. The Commonwealth of Nations, a political association of 54 member states, most of them former territories of the British Empire, serves as a living reminder of the empire's political legacy. However, it's crucial to acknowledge that this legacy is not without its controversies. The empire's history is marred by tales of exploitation, oppression, and cultural erasure. The repercussions of these actions are still felt today in many post-colonial societies, grappling with issues of identity, economic disparity, and social inequality. In conclusion, the empire's legacy is a complex tapestry, woven with threads of influence and controversy. It has left an indelible mark on the world, shaping nations, influencing cultures, and molding global dynamics. It has given us a common language, popular sports, and political structures. But it has also left behind a legacy of exploitation and cultural disruption that continues to reverberate across former colonies. Despite its fall, the empire's influence continues to shape our world in profound ways. The British Empire may be a thing of the past, but its legacy, for better or worse, is very much a part of our present and will likely continue to influence our future.